Welcome back, boxing fans, to another great show with Sean on boxing. So, of course, we all saw Chris Mannix's pound for pound list. Obviously, it's going to be adjusted today now that Better BF beat Bivol. So obviously, he's going to be elevated above Bivol, whether they switch positions or whether he jumps ahead of Canelo Alvarez and Bam Rodriguez. We will see what happens in the future. As far as the players, he's got all the players, and that's what I say. You know, you could throw Junto Nakatani in there, Lomachenko, and Ken Shiro, and at that point, there's about 13 to 15 fighters who are all in that top 10 range. But the consensus is, literally, with everybody in the sport of boxing, that the top three people are Crawford, Usyk, and Inoue. Crawford, Usyk, and Inoue. In whatever order you have them, those guys are considered a tier above the Bivol, Better BFs, Canelos, and Bam Rodriguez's. And even Bam at this point, is he above Better BF, Bivol, and Canelo? Or is he in that Shakur, Javante, Devin Haney, Junto Nakatani range? Obviously, Junto Nakatani fights today, so stay tuned to that. It should be a sensational knockout victory for him. But of course, I saw JB, as you can see here, who of course is upset with this list only because Inoue is ranked too high. And of course, he's happy with the list because probably Crawford is number one. He didn't mention Crawford, but I imagine if Usyk was number one, his perspective would be a little different, because of course he doesn't think you can have a pound for pound list without having a black American fighter at number one. Otherwise, it's obviously false, media created, and not legitimate. But he, for some reason, is so anti-Inoue that he thinks really Inoue shouldn't be above. He didn't even mention Jesse Bam Rodriguez, because you're going to say Jesse Bam Rodriguez has done more than Inoue, but he thinks that obviously Bivol and Canelo have fought higher level of competition than Inoue. And that may be true, but how come you don't mention that when you talk about Javante Tank Davis and Shakur Stevenson? He said he should be at number 6, right? Which is his opinion, but you can see the trend from his channel, the consistent hate and ridicule towards Inoue. He literally had Devin Haney, after beating Lomachenko, at number 2 on his list, right? And this is beating Lomachenko, a guy who he's made a career out of shitting on, downplaying, and criticizing. Literally went out of his way to shit on Lomachenko for fighting for a vacant IBF title against George Kambosos, right? Yet everybody in that division fought for a vacant title because Devin Haney was elevated, right? But nonetheless, Devin Haney gets elevated to number 2 by beating him, but that guy doesn't deserve an opportunity to fight for a vacant title. Right? The narratives people like this push, it's never ceases to amaze me. And the irony is that at one time, when this guy was literally hating on Roman Gonzalez, when Roman Gonzalez was considered, pound for pound, one of the best fighters in the sport of boxing, this guy was talking about how Inoue was his favorite fighter. How quickly they forget, how quickly they fall, right? From being your favorite fighter to now being heavily criticized constantly, all because he's not a black American fighter. And that's where this basis of criticism comes from. Because in reality, when you think about having a Crawford, a Usyk, and a Inoue in the top 3, that just shows you the boxing landscape today. That boxing is global. I know this drives him crazy, but that's because his small mind is so American-centric that he can't understand that there's another world around him. But the world is global now, and yeah, that a lot of that's because of social media, and so when you have a list that represents that, look at that. You have 5 Americans on that list. They don't show Better BF, even though you could put the Canadian flag beside him, and they don't show Bivol because, of course, they don't want to highlight Russia. But then you have 1 Japanese, 1 Ukrainian, 1 Mexican, 2 Russians, 5 Americans. It shows you American boxing is still right at the top of the sport, right? but that obviously you have a great mix of people from around the world representing. And one of those is Inui.